The Australian Grand Prix had all of us on the edge of our seats. As far as entertainment goes, it was pretty unbeatable. But the drivers aren't in the sport for entertainment, they're here to win. This weekend's race may have been a whirlwind of chaos and excitement that had fans screaming at their TVs, but was it right? Is the drivers' anger well-founded, or is this a direction Formula One should be going? We'll dissect everything that happened over an action-packed Sunday and discuss whether the late restart was right or not. Let's get started. The Australian Grand Prix weekend was full of big headlines. It started with Verstappen saying he might leave the sport over the proposed changes to sprint races, and it ended with drivers bemoaning the use of red flags during the race. We saw three waved in Melbourne, a new record in Formula One. The red flag decisions made during the race weren't anything new. They follow an aim laid out in 2021 when team bosses, the FIA and F1's owners agreed that races shouldn't be ending behind safety cars. That aim was the driving factor behind the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix's controversial end, and it was a funny coincidence that Michael Massey was present at this race as well. Before we talk about red flags and whether they were right or wrong and if the race director made the right choices, let's talk about races ending under safety car conditions. No one wants to see an hour and a half of intense racing end in a slow procession. Magnussen hit the wall and ripped his tyre off the rim on lap 53 of 58. Not a single fan can say they would have preferred to watch 5 laps behind the safety car rather than 5 laps of racing. Back in 2021, the FIA, F1's owners Liberty Media and team bosses all agreed on that point. Fans want to watch racing, and it is fans that make the sport happen. The red flag after Magnussen's crash was waved to stop the race ending behind the safety car. During commentary, they said that the race director decided that the debris from the crash was too dangerous to get with cars on track, which might be true. But the threat of a race ending behind a safety car was also a big part of the decision. I think the timing of the red flag is evidence of that. The red flag was waved almost 2 laps after the crash. The field was bunched up behind the safety car, but race director Niels Wittich made the decision that the race was unlikely to get started again if he waited for marshals to clear the debris. So he red flagged the race on lap 55. Everyone came in, and lap 56 was the formation lap. Then the race restarted with Max Verstappen at the front of the grid, crossing the line to start lap 57. From a fan's perspective, I think the red flag was the right choice. Having got up at 4 AM to watch the race, I didn't want to see it end with 5 laps behind a safety car. I got up early to watch racing, and that's what I got. Was it the right choice from the perspective of the drivers? Well, we'll give you their feedback in a second, but first I want to pose a question. Given the incredible growth of the sport under Liberty Media's leadership, the tug-of-war between sport and entertainment has been constant. But should the sport be ruled by the purest rules of racing, or should the spectacle for the fans have some impact on the decision-making? The drivers would obviously prefer the purest racing possible. They spent their whole lives racing by those rules, and old habits die hard. Eventual race winner Max Verstappen said, "I am very happy to have won, but the race towards the end was a bit of a mess. I just didn't understand why we needed a red flag. It left a lot of drivers confused. If we would have had a safety car and then a normal rolling start, we wouldn't have had all these shunts and then you have a normal finish. So they created the problems themselves. We'll talk about it. I think it left a lot of drivers confused about why we needed a red flag. We'll talk in Baku." You'll see a recurring theme in a few of these quotes. The drivers already seem pretty united in asking the FIA in Baku for an explanation about each of the 3 red flags in Melbourne. Every interview I've seen, they specifically questioned the red flag for Magnussen's crash. Max does point out that the race could have restarted with a rolling restart from behind the safety car, but like I said earlier, I think Niels Wittich didn't think there was time to allow that to happen. Drivers were specifically asked whether the stoppages, which close the field up and are followed by dramatic standing starts, were being employed merely to improve the spectacle, with 6 drivers involved in incidents after the second restart. "Nothing against them, but the people who make decisions don't know what's going on inside the car," said McLaren's Lando Norris. "The whole point of red flagging, it feels like it was to put on a show. Someone does something stupid at turn 1, locks up, and your race is over, because the FIA just wants to make the show more exciting." The Mercedes driver George Russell, who took the lead from Verstappen off the start but was then put at a disadvantage after the first red flag, was also critical of the FIA. "I thought the red flag was totally unnecessary," he said. "I don't really know what's going on with some of the decisions at the moment. We're all trying to work together with the FIA to improve things, but it's seemingly a bit of a challenge." There are plenty of other quotes I could pick out, but they all say the same thing. The drivers just don't really understand why the red flag decisions were made. So let's have a look at each incident and see if we can work out why they happened and whether the right decision was made. The first red flag, as a result of Alex Albon's spin and shunt across the gravel and into the wall, was thrown on lap 8. Race leader George Russell pitted under the safety car on lap 7, as did Carlos Sainz from 4th, but both bold moves were scuppered by the stopping of the race. The FIA stated that due to the spewing of gravel in a high-speed section of the street circuit, sufficient time was needed without cars at the scene to remove the debris. I heard some drivers questioning that decision, but looking at the cleanup, I think it was fair. There was gravel all over the track that needed sweeping away. There was also a recovery vehicle almost on track removing Albon's car, and no one wants to see moving Formula 1 cars anywhere near a recovery vehicle. The second red flag came late on, with 4 laps remaining. Kevin Magnussen hit the wall and his right rear tyre cannoned off his stricken Haas. Again, the FIA threw the race-pausing flag, with the debris from the tyre the reason once more. The biggest loser here was undoubtedly Verstappen, who had an 8-second lead wiped out. Fernando Alonso too expressed surprise at the decision over team radio. Kevin managed to park his car relatively sensibly, but with his rear right tyre left on the track waiting to be recovered. The tyre was right next to a Marshall station, which should have made it easy to recover. Kevin's car was by a gap in the barriers and looked easy enough to recover as well. It could have been rolled even without the tyre, so shouldn't have needed a recovery vehicle. The big problem appeared to be the barriers where he hit the wall. It needed repairing, and that isn't a job that can be done quickly. The barrier was on the racing line, and with cars still in circulation, you can't put people at risk to fix that. I think, considering the barrier that needed repairing, the red flag was warranted. Was it convenient that the decision then lined up with the aim of having races end under racing conditions? Well, yeah, it was. But if it happened 10 laps earlier, I don't think any of the drivers would have had any complaints. The third red flag, which cannot be argued against, was thrown, and Verstappen then took the checkered flag effectively behind the safety car. By the end of the race, only 12 cars remained to cross the line. The second red flag was particularly destructive. With only 2 laps remaining, any places gained into turn 1 were almost guaranteed till the end of the race. Every driver took any gap available to them. Contact was everywhere, multiple cars were in the gravel, Alonso got spun off, and Gasly ended up turning into his teammate. Lando Norris, who only prospered as he finished 6th, spoke to the crux of the matter. "I don't feel like it's fair for a lot of people who've done a good job and they get taken out," the McLaren driver said. "Because they try and put on a show, you just get unlucky and everything can get taken away from you all of a sudden. So I just think that side of it, I just think it needs a small rethink." That's the phrase at the top of the agenda right now. Put on a show. The FIA are trying to find the perfect middle ground that allows the sport to be the incredible show it can be, while also keeping the racing safe and fair. Verstappen and Gasly pointed toward the lack of temperature obtainable in the tyres in the effective formation lap behind the safety car before the standing start as a problem. The lack of grip makes collisions and incidents more likely. The race restart following Albon's crash was far cleaner than the late one though. It was what was at stake with a race restart on lap 57 that added the extra danger. Were the right decisions made during the race? For the spectacle, absolutely. For the drivers, definitely not. Could a middle ground be met? Could things be learnt from the race? Well, for sure. In the end, the red flags probably were the right decisions. That doesn't mean things can't be changed in the race restart procedure, though, to make it safer. What's your opinion on the red flags over the weekend? Were they the right call? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe to catch all the rest of the reaction to the weekend's race. Till next time, drive safe and bye for now.